Why do we hear our own voice differently in recordings? Hey everyone, how's it going? Today, I've got a topic that probably intrigues a lot of people. Why does our voice sound different in recordings? That moment when you hear an audio clip of yourself and think, whoa, is that really my voice? It sounds so different from what we're used to, right? If you've ever been through this, and I bet you have, stick around, and let's figure out what's going on here together. Oh, and before we dive right in, if you're enjoying this topic, go ahead and give this video a like, subscribe to the channel so you don't miss other videos, and share it with that friend who's also shocked by their recorded voice. Let's go! The shock of hearing our own voice recorded. Let's face it, most of us have been shocked when hearing our own voice in a recording. It sounds like a totally different version of ourselves, and it doesn't match what we're used to hearing in our heads. This phenomenon, which seems like some kind of trick our brain plays on us, actually has a scientific explanation and a psychological aspect too, which makes it even more interesting. So, grab your headphones and let's understand why this difference happens. The voice we hear versus the voice we speak. To start with, let's talk about what's happening when we speak. When you open your mouth, the sound vibrations from your voice travel through the air and into the ears of everyone nearby, including you. But here's the thing, you're not hearing your voice exactly the same way others are. When we listen to our own voice as we speak, the sound reaches our ears in two ways, through the air and through the vibrations in the bones of our skull. So, as you're talking, these vibrations don't just pass through your outer ear but also travel internally, especially through the bones of your head. And this internal sound has more bass, it's deeper and richer. In other words, the voice we hear from ourselves is a blend of the external sound and those internal vibrations. Why does the recording sound so different? Now, when you record your voice and then play it back, the sound you hear is only what was picked up by the microphone, without the added bass from those internal head vibrations. Without that richer tone you're used to, your voice sounds higher pitched and, in a way, thinner than you imagined. It's like an unfiltered version of your voice, right? But it's important to remember there's no trick or error in the recording. The microphone is just capturing reality, the voice that everyone else hears when you talk. And that's where the surprise comes in, because our brain is used to a voice that's much fuller, with more depth and that extra bit of bass from those internal vibrations. The brain's role and self-image. Now, speaking of the brain, it also plays an interesting role here. Have you noticed that most people have a special relationship with their own voice? Our voice is something very personal, and in our mind, it has a pretty solid identity. It's part of who we are and how we perceive ourselves. So, when we hear a version of our voice that doesn't match what's in our mind, there's this discomfort, almost like we're listening to a stranger speaking. It's as if the brain is saying, wait, is that really me? And here's something even more curious. Our brain is stubborn and loves to hold on to the versions it knows well. That's why it takes a while for us to get used to the sound of our recorded voice. But if you listen to this external version of your voice over and over, that discomfort lessens, and eventually, you start to recognize yourself in it more. Sounds strange, right? But it's true. Differences in ear shape and tone of voice. Another factor that influences this double-voiced effect is individual anatomy. For instance, the shape of your ear alters how you hear external sounds. Every ear is practically unique and shapes sounds slightly differently. So, what you hear from your own voice goes through this exclusive filter of your ear and ends up sounding even more unique. Plus, the tone of our voice changes depending on the context. We tend to speak softer with people we care about or in a firmer way when we're being serious. But usually, our internal voice, the one we use most to think and speak to ourselves, is more neutral and calm. Why do we care so much? Another interesting point is understanding why our recorded voice bothers us so much. It has a lot to do with the concept of self-image. We all have an idea of who we are, and our voice is part of that image. Most people tend to prefer a deeper, richer version of their own voice, as it often sounds calmer and more confident. That's why, when we hear a recording where our voice sounds different, we have a rejection reaction. It's almost like we're thinking, this person doesn't sound like me. The impact of voice on our personality. Now, here's something interesting. Our voice is an essential part of our personality and how we communicate. From a young age, we learn to recognize familiar voices, and our own voice eventually becomes a reference. When we hear ourselves differently, it's like someone changed a piece of our identity. So, it's not just about sound, it's about personality and how we perceive ourselves. This connection between voice and identity is something scientists study a lot. After all, voice carries emotions, expresses our intentions, and reflects our confidence. It's natural for us to feel uncomfortable when something so important to our identity, like our voice, seems strange or out of our control. Can we improve our relationship with our own voice? The good news is yes, we can improve this relationship. The more you hear your voice in recordings, the more familiar it becomes. So, a tip is to record yourself speaking, whether you're reading something or just telling a story to yourself, and then listen to it afterward. This helps the brain get used to the external version of your voice. Over time, you'll notice that uncomfortable feeling decreases a lot. Another interesting thing is noticing how our voice changes over time. If you have recordings of yourself over the years, you can see how our voice adjusts as we age and experience different things. And this also influences how we perceive ourselves. Wrap up and final reminder. Now you know why we hear our own voice differently in recordings. It's a mix of vibrations, brain perception, and even a hint of psychology. So, next time you hear a recording of yourself, remember, that's your real voice, just without the special effect of those internal vibrations. And hey, the truth is that our voice is unique, even if it goes through these small changes between what we hear and what actually comes out. It's normal, and it's one of those amazing curiosities of our body and mind that makes life more interesting, right? When we stop and think about it, it's incredible how something as everyday as our voice has so many layers and nuances. So, if you don't really like your recorded voice, just relax. Remember that it's a part of who you are, a trait that only you have, carrying a bit of your essence every time you speak. It's like your own personal calling card. And if you still have questions or a funny story to share about this topic, comment below. I'd love to hear what you all have to say, and who knows, maybe we'll discover even more about this together. And of course, make sure to subscribe to the channel so you don't miss the next videos. There's always something new and fun here. Oh, and one last reminder, just to emphasize, share this video with someone who's always complaining about their own voice. I bet it'll help to clear things up and maybe even turn those little annoyances into something we can laugh and learn about. Thank you so much for watching until the end. It was awesome to have you here. See you in the next video with more fun facts about our bodies, minds, and so much more. Until next time, thanks, everyone.